Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What with Dan and Julie. Today we've got Kevin on, who is a full stack developer. Hi, Kevin.
Hey everyone.
How are we today?
Yeah, doing good. So excited to be here.
Yes, excited to have you on. Kevin, do you want to tell everyone a bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a full stack developer. I'm working as a freelancing software developer, meaning I'm self-employed. I have my own freelancing business, and I'm working together with clients on software projects. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
So, for anyone that doesn't really know, what actually is software development?
So yeah, software development is basically the process of producing software, I guess, but that could be mobile applications, computer applications, basically architecting these. So creating them, coding them up, and basically releasing them to users.
So, do you specialize in something? You've obviously said web apps and phone apps. Is there something you particularly do?
Yeah, so I'm more in the web application development. So yeah, web apps. And being a full stack, I'm doing both backend and front end development, meaning I'm comfortable making the front end which the user interacts with, and also the back end, which is where all the logic and data transmission is going on and communication with the database.
Are they much different between the two?
Yeah, it is a lot different, and some people only prefer to do one over the other. Um, Also, the languages could be different. The programming languages that you use, um, there's some similarity as well. For example, just handling the data is similar, but the end goal of kind of what you want is different. Yeah.
So, what actually is a web app? Like, could you give me some examples of things maybe we interact with on a daily basis that you would be similar to the things you're building?
Yeah. Oh, sure. So basically, a web application is an application on the web, and it's more complex than a simple website. For example, a web application everyone probably knows is Facebook.
Okay.
Basically, you have a lot of functionality going on. You have the ability to post, so users have the ability to create posts, upload images, to chat with other people. So the whole thing, that it's an application because it could do so many things versus a static website, for example, Wikipedia, which it's more static and you're just kind of consuming it.
Okay. And how did you get into this world of software development then?
Yeah, so I went the traditional route of going to college, to university, and I actually started out as a electrical engineer. So I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering, and as an electrical engineer, you still learn some programming, mostly embedded systems, meaning things like programming electronics in cars, or kind of low level programming. And I like that more. So I like programming, and I did some websites at the time, and at the university they taught us a bit of that as well. And I wanted to do programming, instead of like the more electrical engineering, like the high voltage kind of stuff. So I decided to do my master's in software engineering, and basically, yeah, that's how I got started, and how I became a software
So,
developer.
so did you go straight into the world of work, or did you go straight into freelancing? How did you get your
Yeah,
first job?
yeah, exactly. So I went to the workforce. So I found a company. Applied to jobs, found a company to work at. Basically, yeah, the first job as a developer, I think, would be the hardest to get, basically, because most companies are looking for people with some experience, and I even had some part-time experience at a startup. But it was, difficult a bit at the beginning finding the first job. But once I found it after a couple months, I started as a software developer at a startup, and yeah, that was my first job. And since then, I had two other jobs as an IT consultant and as a full stack developer at a financial firm. And a couple months ago, I started doing freelancing. I wanted to go more, the independent route of being an independent contractor, working on different projects instead of being at one company.
So we recently actually had a software developer on, and he does exactly what you do, full stack. And we were just chatting
Nice.
about it, and he said he likes the variety as well of, you know, being able to go between projects, and he really enjoys that. And he's found that the demand for full stack developers is so large at the moment. Are you finding the same thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think people are looking for developers who kind of give a hand in different parts of the application. So being a full stack developer, you know, you have some knowledge on databases, on the front end, on the back end systems. So you could basically kind of work in whatever kind of area and technology stack. And I think, you know, and what is it? Employers like that, you know, they don't want just one person doing the back end or front end, because let's say one of them is, you know, off for some reason, sickness or vacation, then the other person can kind of jump in and do some work. So in that manner, yeah, it's I think it's easier to find a job as a full stack
How
developer.
transferable are the skills of a software developer? You know, you obviously work for web applications as a full stack, but could you move that into, I don't know, creating programs or games or phone applications? How transferable are the skills once you've got that core element down?
Yeah, so it is transferable. There'll be a learning curve. There are some differences, but the core, basically, kind of programming, kind of like paradigms or the way you program and the building blocks, the really small building blocks of coding and programming, that's the same. But there's some overhead with if you're going into game development, it's much more. I haven't done any, so I don't know too much, but it's much more with the 3D calculations for rendering the game, for example, and web application. It's what do I want to say? For example, mobile application. It's you kind of have to, depending on what mobile platform you put on. So you want to put on iOS or Android, there'll be some differences. So there's some learning curve to it. Some of the fundamental programming stuff you could carry over.
So what's an average day like for a full stack developer then? You know, what are some of the tasks involved? What are some of the things you have to think about?
Yeah, a typical day, I would say, like a lot of times you would have a stand-up meeting. You would talk to the other developers of what you're working on, and what are for example, some of the obstacles you faced, and what are the next steps. That could be, you know, in the morning. Some teams have it in the afternoon, and then you have what is called kind of like a board. Some companies, they'll call it a Jira board if they're using Jira, where you kind of have these tasks laid out for you and assigned to you. And you look at the specification, and you basically you kind of start prototyping it, whatever the feature is, and you iteratively work on that feature until you polish it up, and you could commit that code to the code base.
And as a freelance developer, how do your projects sort of work? Are you just brought in to do a little bit, or do you generally see a project from sort of creation all the way to the end?
Yeah, it's really different. It's a wide spectrum, because for example, freelancing could be, you know, just working on a project for a couple of weeks if it's something like a simple website, or it could be, you know, they want contractors on a long-term project, which could take you know, months or sometimes even years, depending on the project. Currently, I'm working more long-term. I'm on 2 projects, and it's more like independent contracting position, which are more long-term.
So what kind of projects have you been working on recently then?
So yeah, recently, for one of the clients, I'm basically helping them speed up their processes, as in their algorithms that they use. They're using Python, and I'm helping them convert some of that Python code into C++, which is a faster language. So C++, it's I'll go a bit into detail. It's what is it called? It's a machine it's a compiled language, and it compiles into machine code. So it means it's really specific to the machine you're going to work on, but it makes it really fast. So C++ is the programming language you would use if you want fast execution. And that's what I'm helping them with. So speeding up their algorithms. For another client, I'm helping them build a web application, and I'm just doing a smaller part of that. I'm only working with them only one day per week, and the other one is 4 days per week.
For how much of your work is actually going back and looking at older software and written code, and how hard is it to understand that and then work on top of that, someone else's work?
That's one of more difficult parts of programming and software development, is kind of understanding legacy code, they call it, which is basically old code written a while back. And basically, if it's an existing system that you need to develop a new feature, then it's a lot of looking at the code. Usually, if it's a good code base, it has tests and it's well documented, so you could kind of lean on that. Tests are actually a really good way to see how the existing application works. That takes some time depending on the project. Luckily, right now I'm actually on projects which are more greenfield project, meaning it's a new project. Basically, it's from scratch, and so that in that manner, I'm not reading that much older code. I'm more kind of on the frontier developing new code.
Setting up those sort of like tests, is it sort of not regulation, but just good practice to allow someone else to be able to come back and read your code in the future?
Yeah, it's definitely good practice. I mean, big firms, they try to put emphasis that you need to have well tested code, because that though mostly the systems they're building are going to last 10, 20, who knows how many years in the future, and it needs to be well tested in case in the future someone makes a new feature and touches existing code, and they might change something in a way that breaks a test. And if we have those tests that we know that code broke, and we need to go back and still polish it up and make it work so the new feature works, but also the existing test still pass. Now, if you don't have that test, you don't know if anything breaks, which means you think everything is working fine and people are using it. And depending on, if it's an application that handles money or something, it could easily resort to money being lost because of the application. It's not well tested and things like that.
And what personality traits do you think are really key for someone as a full stack developer?
Personality traits, you need to be, I think, really curious. It's good that you like looking into detailed code. So looking into detail, looking basically under the hood, how things are working. You need to be a good problem solver. A lot of the times it's problem after problem that you just have to solve and persevere. Just think logically, and also level-headed, trying not to be frustrated sometimes when something doesn't work. Something doesn't work and you're still trying to figure out. And it's also good to ask other developers on their input, and also being bringing other developers in if needed. So also being kind of open-minded, like you're not supposed to solve it all by yourself. You could easily ask for others and to help you out.
And for you, what would be one of the biggest positives you've had from working in the industry?
Yes, the biggest positives. I need to think about it, because basically, the variety of the work. It's really, it's not monotone at all. It's really different every time. It's different challenges. You basically never see the same problem again, because once you solve it, you kind of know how to solve it, and you have that snippet of code, you could use it anytime. You could bring it in, and just the variety, and that each day is different challenges.
And on the flip side of that, what would be some less favorable aspects of this industry?
Yeah, so less favorable, I guess. Uh, yeah, just sometimes, like there's the things we talked about, like the tests that software should have, and the less favorable part is when these things aren't upheld. If there's lack of testing, lack of conventions. If there's usually conventions in place when you start a project on how to name things, how to basically how to do stuff, and if it goes all over the place, it's really frustrating for a developer to work, because it just makes the work more painful and just harder.
And what's your best piece of advice for anyone listening to this and thinking, I'd actually love to be a full stack developer? How would they get into it? And what would you suggest?
Yeah, so being a developer, I think there's a tendency, nowadays you don't necessarily need a degree. It does help, I would say. Some companies are still kind of a bit like conservative, and they want to see a degree. But the best is, even if you get a degree, always kind of work on personal projects, because most of the time you'll learn good things at a university. A lot of times the experience you get as a developer, it's the fact that you're solving problems on a day-to-day basis. And if you have these side projects that you're making a website, you're trying this technology out, it's good to have that experience. And so anyone starting out, even if maybe not going to college, but yeah, doing some research and not just looking at tutorials, but actually using that knowledge once you learn it, basically. So if you learn like the basics of making a website, HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript, start thinking about kind of like a project that you want to work on, and something that's you're passionate about, because then you'll continue and just work on projects, basically gain experience from that, and build up a nice portfolio of work that you've done.
Is there any resources that you would recommend for maybe young students to look at to help develop their skills?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of resources on the internet. I think one that's really good is, I think it's free code camp, if I remember correctly. That's the website. But yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know too much.
No, that rings a
Which
bell
specific
actually. From a while
resources?
ago,
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, free code camp, that's come up before. I think that's
yeah,
that's a
exactly.
really good one, apparently.
Yeah, and on YouTube, honestly, there's really good content on YouTube to learn coding.
And
Sure.
what would be something that just was not in the job description, something you never expected to be dealing with whilst in this industry of software development?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the role. But sometimes just being what is it, like on support, meaning you're supporting the software that you're building, as in if users come in, you might need to answer questions about that. And as a developer, that's not the most exciting part, and it's not what you think about when you want to, you want to build an application, you want to work on that. And a lot of developers are introverts, and don't more like they like to focus on deep work and working on their craft and the application, and not more conversing with other people. So sometimes and that's not really posted in the job description, that you will have to handle some support tasks, meaning assisting users that don't know something or something like that.
When we had the other guy on who was also a full stack developer, we talked about the need to constantly be learning and constantly keeping yourself up to date. Is that something that you find as technology evolves and new code and new languages and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. Being a developer, a software developer, you need to basically always have that mindset that you should always keep on learning new things. You don't really want to be stuck on technology, and after a while that technology might be outdated. And it also, being able to always learn new things is what keeps the job exciting. So if you're always working on the same programming language, same type of code, it'll get boring after a while. So basically, learning will make it so that it's different every time, and also to keep up with the kind of like the demands of the industry, with new technologies coming in that will help making developers' job easier.
And would you still go into this industry knowing everything you know now?
Yeah, definitely. For sure. Like some things I might have done different. One thing which I mentioned earlier is kind of having more kind of like personal projects on the side. I think while I was at university, sometimes I didn't, because I was doing like other things like basically doing the university task, doing sports, exercise, and having a social life. Sometimes I didn't put emphasis on kind of like having like your own personal project where you kind of do and you learn from, and maybe I would have done that more towards the beginning. But yeah, I'll still definitely be in this industry.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us, Kevin. It's been a real pleasure to hear about your career and how you got into it. And I think you've given some really, really good advice.
That's good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to be here. So it was exciting. It was fun to be on the podcast. So it's a new experience for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Where can people find you and reach out if they want to?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at kev.in.tech. And you can reach me there, DM me, and ask questions about the field. So please reach out if anyone wants to learn more, and I'll be happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks again, Kevin.
Thank you.